Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for the webinar. Today, Ablesh will talk about the new additions that we have made to the WebEngage dashboard. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can punch them in the question section of your GoToWebinar panel. Also, a handout has been shared with you in the handout section, which is a PDF presentation for you, which you can use as a later resource. Over to you, Ablesh.
Hello everyone, this is Ablesh. It's my pleasure to get you guys on today for this webinar on introducing WebEngage. And I look forward to have a session which is of some interest to you guys. We are waiting for a lot of attendance to join in. Hundreds have already, and we'll wait for another 2-3 minutes. In the meanwhile, I have shared a blog post with you guys. The link to that is in the chat section. Let me send that to in the handout section as well. I'd request you to go through that cursory, and I'll take another 2 minutes and we'll get started. Thank you. Huh? Wow. Huh? Yeah.
Wish you could create happy customers like this? Now you can with WebEngage.
Just like me. Hi, I'm Abe, the marketing director at Jewelry for You. We were spending a ton of effort and marketing budget getting more users to our website and mobile app, but the sales numbers weren't growing in tandem and it was hard to even figure out why. Here's how WebEngage helped us. When seemingly interested users weren't buying and instead were about to leave our website, we started asking a few simple questions and collecting a little more context. Suddenly, we didn't just know why users weren't buying, but actually had a targetable audience we could push offers to, not spray and pray. Instead, we started pushing offers to the right users at the right time. For example, I created a segment of all users who didn't purchase because they found the price too high. And I pushed a personal offer notification to their phones when they were in the vicinity of a popular jewelry store. As simple as that, we now understand our users better and as a result, can engage them better across devices, all from a single platform. That means less effort, better conversion, and more growth.
Create happy customers. Create engagement with WebEngage. Start your free trial today at webengage.com.
This was an explainer video by WebEngage. Now, we'll start with the webinar and the dashboard analysis.
Hope you guys liked it. And I hope that manages to explain, the new stuff that we're doing to a large extent. All in all, WebEngage is now your multi-channel engagement product, which works across devices. When I say across devices, earlier in the prior avatar, we used to be a desktop web-only product. Now we are a desktop web product. We are a mobile web product, and we also let you engage within your mobile app as well across iOS and Android. That's the cross-device aspect of WebEngage. And when we say multi-channel, we essentially mean 5 different ways to engage that we are offering you within WebEngage. The one that we used to offer you earlier in terms of on-site engagement product, we now call it web messages. And additionally, for your mobile app, we have introduced push notifications and in-app messages. And we are very shortly releasing email as a medium of engagement, quickly followed by text messages. So web messages, in-app messages, push notifications, emails, and text messages. All of this, 5 different ways to engage from a single platform. One of the things that has fundamentally changed is how we actually look at user data. So, for example, in the prior avatar, if you have used WebEngage, you would use us to push notifications or surveys on your website when a user is using your website. And the targeting abilities that we used to offer you were primarily based on session data and session information. So, for example, amongst a lot of use cases that people would use us for would be things like if a single user has landed on the site from, let's say, Facebook and has browsed for, say, 60 seconds and is now on my pricing page, push a message to the guy. That form of engagement is what you primarily knew WebEngage as. And if you see what we have done, I'm actually looking at your dashboard right now. And if you see, we have clubbed all of this inside this area of engagement called as web messages. Additionally, you'd see push notifications. I'll take you there. And in-app messages. We're shortly releasing email and text, and I'll talk about it. This is one aspect. The other thing that has changed and changed for good is our understanding of users. When I say users, we track users across their journey within your website and app, and we track their behavior in the form of events. By automatically being integrated on a website through our Web SDK and JavaScript SDK, and in your apps through our Android and iOS SDKs, we glean a lot of device and acquisition data information. So, for example, we know what kind of device profile the guy has. We also know the acquisition source of the user. So on the web, for example, we would understand pretty much anything in terms of user acquisition source definitions, as you would see in, let's say, a Google Analytics. We know that the guy has been acquired through a paid campaign on Google AdWords, or on Facebook, or on Twitter. Or we would also know that the user has been acquired through a landing page channel. We pass all this information for you, present to you in a very nice and simple fashion. I'm going to take you through that. But the point being very simple, that now we understand all the users that you have on your site, whether they or app, whether they're using you anonymously or as a signed in user, as a known user or a guest user that you know. Within users, we introduced this concept of what we call as contacts, which are essentially users that are identifiable. People who you could reach out to either using a phone number or an email. We call them as contacts. So on my screen, if you're looking at, you'd see the very first section. I'm showing you your dashboard now, the way it looks at it. When you log into WebEngage next, if you have logged in already, you would know. For those who haven't, this is how your dashboard looks like. On your left, is these two broad sections around insights and engagement, and the lesser important things are all here. Within insights, we talk about your users. We talk about all the events we have been receiving, and this is the most important and beautiful piece that that I'm going to show you. Some of you would have experienced this in a few other analytics products, but there are some very interesting things we are trying to do here in the form of building segments, and I'm going to walk you through that. Within users, at a very high level, we talk about your active users, and generally the window being a month. Typically, a lot of your monthly active users. I'll go to acquisitions. Contacts are people who you know, as I said, who are basically identifiable. So let me show you how does a user profile typically look like. So let's say all these are identifiable contacts. So these are people who either have a phone number or an email or some way to reach out. Let's say. And within each profile, we capture all the information that is pertaining to the user. So basically, all the events that the user has performed, and all the device profile that the same user has across your multiple devices. So the profile that the guy has on the web, and the profile that the guy has on your, let's say, mobile app, both iOS as well as Android. I'll just pick any. This is so this account that you're looking at, all the samples, all the examples that I'm going to give you, they'll hover around an online travel website and an in-app travel website app data. So this is a demo account that we have set up. This is how a user profile looks like. All this information is what is pertaining to the identification of the user. These are what we call as custom attributes, the profile attributes. Basically, anything that you care about outside of, let's say, the attributes that we understand, things like email, things like phone number, things like let's say date of birth, and a few of those. These are what we call as custom. You can pass any information here. Let's say the user type. This guy is a premium user versus a platinum user. And what you see below, the stuff that we call as activity, is all events. These are chained, and very soon these will be clickable. So once I click on it, you'll be able to see the attributes of each event as well, which is, so this is, added to cart event, and the attributes would be the item name, the item phone number, the item ID, the item price, category, and things like those. Within events, we have two different kinds. One is what we call a system event. In this case, a system event would typically be app installed, which is something that we track by default. Another set of app events, system events could be all the data that we capture pertaining to our own engagement products. So for example, if you're using us to send a push notification, a click on a push notification is an event that we capture by default. So you would see an event which says push notification ID 123 clicked. That's a system event. Everything else that you see here is what we call as application events that are specific to your own app or web, and you track them to be able to segment your user and classify them and then reach out to them in a different way. I'll get to that. On your right, what you see is the device profile of this user. So from when was the guy first and last seen, to when was the app installed, to the number of sessions that you have had so far, the amount of time that this guy spent, the platform, device type. You'll see this is a very long list, and we actually make all of this data actionable through our segmentation, and I'll show you how. And this is all very basic integration, by the way, what you see on the right hand side. This is pieces of information that we glean automatically without you having to do much. If this user had a web profile as well, you would have seen an additional tab here. Or an iOS profile as well, you would have seen an iOS tab here with the same set of data being logged in at their respective tabs. In this case, it's only one. I hope you guys are with me so far. Please feel free to drop in your questions. There is a question tab, on your poll screen. Yeah, please feel free to drop in your questions, and I'll pick them up as and when. Now, going back to users, at a very high level, what we are able to track for you is your monthly actives and daily actives in a very simple fashion, able to tell you that these are the people who we are tracking across different sources. We are bringing in a lot of statistics and insights here in the form of who these people are, what kind of traits are they showing, attributes they're showing, what is their acquisition source, where are they coming from, what is the platform-based distribution. We are trying to do a lot of interesting stuff here in the form of insights to bring to you. What are your top acquisition sources, for example? And contacts I already talked to you guys about, which is basically all identifiable users that you can reach out. Now, let's look at events. As I said, there are two distinct kind of events. There are system events and there are application events. And each event can have a set of attributes, which are key value pairs that you can pass. So for example, in this case that you see, these are all system events. App installed, logged in, push notification received, notification viewed. This is a web notification. The guy logged out of your site. All of these are system events that we understand. And then there are what we call as application events, which are things like these. The guy browsed travel packages on your site, went to the login screen, clicked on a certain button to check a status, searched for hotels, let's say. These are all events, and each event, broadly we tell you, how this event is happening in real time. When was this event last spotted on a website? We're kind of building a event library, a very strong event library for you to be able to do more. So for example, if you wanted to stop tracking a certain event for certain use cases, you could do that from within the dashboard, without having to actually immediately go and get some amount of code changes done within your website or your app. Coming to the core reason of why we are doing all this is to be able to let you build some very interesting segments. And the reason why we let you build segments is each of these products that I talked about, whether it's push notifications, web messages, in-app, or email, or text, the rule behind each one of these is that you build the UI, the user interface of, let's say, a in-app message, or the content of a push notification, and then you decide the audience that you want to send this to. That audience in all these cases will be a segment of users. So broadly, no matter which product you use, you'll be able to create, as I said, the content of it or the user interface of it, and then define who gets to see this content or UI. And then there is a separate set of rules that you specify to either trigger this in case of a push notification, for example, or define areas on your website or your app where the in-app or on-site engagement has to pass. So classically, the way we put it is defining who gets to see this, which in all cases is a segment. In some cases where there is an on-site or in-app engagement, you get to define the where part of it. Where do the user get to see this in-app message, let's say, which is when you say anytime the guy launches my app on the home screen, or only on a particular screen after a few seconds, and so on and so forth. And the third part is what triggers this content, which is, let's say, a push notification or this in-app message. And those triggers are either time-based triggers or event-based triggers. So for example, in case of a push notification, you could choose to send a push notification after a certain event has happened, or 2 hours later a certain event has happened, which is a rolling window. Let me go back to segments and explain, show you some samples of what does a segmentation for us mean. These are some pre-built segments. I'll actually try and show you how we build it. So all forms of segmentation within WebEngage is largely split into these three groups. Everything pertaining to the user, everything pertaining to user behavior, and everything pertaining to users' device data. We call them user behavioral and technology. Let me show you users. This is the simplest one. New users, repeat visitors, or users with greater than 10 sessions. As you see on the right hand side, the sticker keeps changing depending upon the value that you choose, and shows you how many targetable users that you have for the segment that you're creating. Anyways, you could define who are these users that you want to create a segment for. These are users who have been acquired between so and so date, or users who have been acquired in the last 6 months. You could do geo filters, users only from a certain geography. You can add many more here. And these are the attributes that I was talking about, the custom attributes, which essentially is everything that that you pass in as a custom attribute. So for example, if you were passing in an attribute saying customer type, you would see this here. Let's see some of these. So you say login channel, and login channel is a string, and you want it to be, let's say, Facebook, for example. I guess we don't have enough data here. Otherwise, this would have shown up as an option. Anyways, so this is all about users, and I'll reset this value. You must have most of you must have seen a lot of segmentation software, and from analytics tools to BI tools, you must have seen a lot of interesting ways to create segments. Let me quickly show you how and why we are different. We broadly split this into 2 halves to remove all the confusion. Users who did something and users who didn't do anything, who didn't do something. When I say users who did something, you could create a segment of users. You could create a segment of users who have done an event called added to cart. More than 5 number of times. So basically what I'm trying to say is anybody who has ever added to cart or has done it more than X number of times, or has done it, let's say, once. Furthermore, each event has a set of predefined attributes that you pass along with the event data. So as I said, this is a travel site, and all the data that you would see is pertaining to travel. So anybody who has done add to cart and the arrival city was, let's say, Victoria in Australia. Now this is a set of users who have flown in to Victoria, Australia, at least once. Well, not really flown in because I said added to cart. So this should be more like bought, and then what I said would just fall in line. You could club it with all the negation on the same or other set of events. So what we have basically done here is at each event, you get to choose filters based on the attributes, and you get to define rules based on number of occurrences of that event as well. Now imagine the power of doing this, especially for your in-app and on-site engagement, where you could build segments based on behavior, based on browsing behavior, based on behavior which basically says the guy has performed a search. So let's try and see this. Anybody who has browsed a travel package, I'll get rid of the filter. So anybody who has browsed a travel package at least once and has never done an add to cart. Now you get the gist. So you'd be able to build segments of users based on their behavior on your website. In the prior avatar, we were not tracking these events at WebEngage level. So we never actually saved all this data. For you to be able to build segments and rules which let you use historical information to target users. Now you have. This is live in your dashboard. As long as you're passing the right piece of information, you'd be able to use it right away. I'll quickly move on to the next one, which is your section on tech, and this is what I was trying to explain earlier in the form of properties. So for each device that the guy is using you from, we capture all this information. So for example, we know the SDK version, which is us only. We know the brand, we know the model of the device, the manufacturer, our API version, the time spent, your app's version, and things like those. So you could use this. You could say, for example, you wanted to target all Samsung users here. This is how you basically go about doing it. I'm sorry, I should have said actually a manufacturer, but anyways. Yeah, and same for all your other devices as well. You have iOS properties, pretty much similar, and then we have your web properties as well, which is your platform, browser, and things like those. So you could very well target, let's say, a Chrome user with version greater than, let's say, 40. Now, all of this put together is what actually builds a segment. Let me show you some of the existing ones and users who logged out. It's a fairly simple and easy segment to understand. Users who have done user logged out event where count is greater than 1. That's how you kind of express it. And what we end up doing is create sort of a timeline for users falling in this segment and show you a time series of that piece of information. And I'll show you how that looks like. This is at a very high level segment analytics. In the meanwhile, I'm quickly jumping onto my another tab, and I shared this URL with you, which is a blog post on what is this whole new WebEngage is all about. And there's a very detailed data and our thought process behind why we did this change in the very first place. It talks about us being able to glean a lot of information, but not saving it and giving it back to you. When we realized we were doing that with some of the properties, the value was immense for a customer, and that was the turning point, for this change. You saw the video already, And this entire post talks about how do we actually get you on board. Some of the pieces we'll touch upon in this demo. I'm going back to segments. Well, this is a demo account, so it sounds like a fairly straight line. But this is basically users who match this segment as on date, which essentially means that if you created a segment of certain users, there'll be users moving into the segment and out of the segment on a running window basis. So our purpose of showing you this analytics is essentially to give you a view of people in motion in that segment, telling you on a day-to-day basis as to how many people actually fit into this segment as on date. And we intend to do a lot of interesting stuff in terms of analytics, as I said, around each of these properties. A lot of it is in the works already. So another couple of days, you'll see a bunch of insights here. This is all around segments. Now, let me show you how to actually make use of it. A very quick tour of push notification. You can now, with WebEngage, send push notifications across your Android and iOS devices, as long as the SDKs are integrated. And I'll touch upon the integration part at the end. I chose Android, and without diving too much deep, this is how you actually create a push notification. Well, as much as it is a spam, let's count it as non-spam. You could define your call to action on this one by sending the guy to a deep link or an external URL. You specify the deep link and any kind of key value that you provide here. I'm just adding it for the sake of it. And any kind of key value that you provide here. So, for example, let's say this is I just randomly selected a key and a value, and you could add as many as you want. The moment you define a deep link based call to action, you could specify a bunch of keys here that we pass along to your to your app when the user clicks on it. And this is something cool. A bunch of these guys like Android and some of the other platforms, they allow you to build expandable notifications. So, for example, I could add multiple CTAs in a So I could say, go to Google. This is expanded preview. And, I could say, well, nobody goes to Yahoo these days, but you can still send people to Yahoo. And we let you add up to 3. For iOS, I believe it's 2, and the number keeps changing depending on their versions. So all in all, we just built our push notifications. We just built our first push notification, which says this. And this icon is essentially your accounts icon that you can upload. We'll talk about that. And when the user expands the notification, this is how the preview looks like. By default, this is how it looks like. I'm sorry. And you could very quickly add variants of, variants of this notification and define how these campaigns are stacked up. So point that I was trying to highlight here with this piece is that with the new WebEngage, we have this thing called CRO toolkit, the conversion rate toolkit, which is bundled into the product and comes with a very simple unified experience. which is any campaign that you create, no matter what it is, whether it's a push or a web message or an in-app or going forward an email or a text, you'd be very easily allowed to do variations, create variants, and run them in the A/B mode and track performance for each one of them via our conversion tracking module. I'll come to all of that. So as a user, what we're trying to do for you is to simplify your engagement module experience with only one way of creating and testing and analyzing data, which essentially means not only the UI, which we're anyways trying to align, largely the focus is on getting you to test, experiment, and analyze data in a simple and unified fashion across your campaigns, across your channels. So you've seen push notification. The rules part of it, by the way, so let me show you here. Well, some sort of fancy error message. If you look at this screen, the who that I was talking about, who and when, which is the trigger, is pretty much the same as your segments. So if you've seen, these are all the segments that we created earlier in this account. And I can simply say, I want to send this push to people who are in a hurry checking in their status and again. All these are demo segments, but people who did not complete checkout. And this push will go to people who have not done checkout, let's say. You could choose to send it on a certain date. You could choose to send it later. And now what we're introducing is the ability to send based on event-based triggers. I'm going to show you how that looks like. I'll come back to that one. I'll show you some of the event-based triggers and how they look like. Let me just show you the stats part of this. All this is test data, so take it with a pinch of salt. But basically, for every campaign, we are able to present at a variation level. For each of your variants, you'd be able to see this data in real time. I'll quickly give you a glimpse of how our in-app messages look like. Conceptually, our in-app messages look no different than our web messages and have the same set of, work on the same set of principles as our web messages, which is essentially anything with a message and a call to action. We call it push notifications. We call them in-app notifications. And anything wherein you would want to collect user data or user inputs, like a rating or a user email. We'll add more here. We call them surveys. Let me show you an in-app notification. We're launching soon for Android. It's almost there. We're launching soon for iOS. The Android one is already there. We're creating an in-app notification now. And, this is... By the way, there is this whole, thing around personalization that I haven't talked about, but I'll address that in a bit. And, you could, all this is trivial. And I don't even know if I have. That's my co-founder, and we'll actually use him for the purpose of this demo. Let's see, something wrong here. But anyways, if the image gets uploaded, this will show up here. Let me try with something more lightweight. Well, I don't have any. Anyways, there seems to be some glitch here, but once you upload an image, the image shows up here, and then you define the same call to action as I said, and you define whether it's a deep link or an external URL. And well, without the image, it kind of looks very ugly. But I'll get that checked very quickly as to how does it look. But this is a full page modal layout, and this is a page blocker as we call it. And what it lets you do is create a message with the central image in with a main image and a call to action. And as you saw, we are introducing a bunch of these other layouts. For example, you have seen what you were seeing is if there's a page blocker, we have something which is a classic modal and a header, and we'll be launching many more here. Conceptually, if you look at it, all of these layouts are coming from the same set of concepts that we have had for our web notifications and web surveys in the past. So for example, when you're trying to create a web message, which is, let's say, we had, we have these layouts as you already know, which is how does this message looks on your web. And you from callouts to mobile headers and mobile footers and modal windows, you have had these for a while. What we also did was we built a gallery for you. What you're looking at is all web messages, which essentially are the same set of in-app things that you saw that run on your desktop or mobile site. We also built a gallery for you. This is a ready-made gallery, so if you like this, you could use this out of the box. It gets copied into your account. You could customize text. You could see how this one looks. I am assisted by Divya for this webinar, and I would kind of request her to sort the questions. I already have a lot of them, so we can start taking some of them as and when as and when we are kind of going through this one. Yeah. Thank you, Divya. I have a few questions. But anyways, before I go on to the questions, here is a preview of how this web notification will look like, the one that you chose from gallery. And if you like it already, you could just say use this, and it gets into your account. Once it does, you have the same set of things which are basically around targeting and segmentation, the way you saw it earlier. I'll go into the dashboard again, but let me just quickly take some of these questions that I have. I have Ishita asking, cross-device behavior is linked to one unique email ID. Yes, Ishita, that's correct. It could be any unique identifier. In most cases that we are working with customers right now, it is the email ID or the phone number. In some cases, we are working with wherever we are working with the bank and financial services companies, those IDs are being obfuscated as well, and it's a random character which is common across the two parties, and looking at it, you can't make out what it is, but it remains consistent and uniform across the user's journey. Gil is asking, how do you recognize user ID? I think it's pretty much the same question as Ishita. Gil, across devices, we plant a very long-term identifier. So on your web, for example, we plant a long-term cookie to identify the user. Within your apps, we again put an identifier, which in case of an Android is linked to the device ID. In case of iOS, we plant our own ID, and we keep a track of that for the longest period of time. If you had to cross-link, we have this thing called customer ID. We call it CUID, which is something that you could use to cross-link these emails. Cross-link these profiles of users who are present across devices. The best part is that we actually do this historically as well. So, for example, if a user on your mobile app is using you anonymously, and the same user is using your desktop app, let's say anonymously, there are two distinct profiles that got created. Now, when the user signs in, let's say someday on your desktop app, the history of the desktop app profile of that user got unified into one profile, which is a known user. And when the same user logs in into your app, of course with the same identifier, all these two or three profiles, they got merged into one. And now we know the user as one, along with behaviors on different devices, each one of them being available to you for targeting. So in essence, what I'm trying to say, for users that you know across devices, you could basically target them based on their behavior in a different device altogether. If a user has done, abandoned a cart on your desktop side, you could nudge the guy within your app when the guy launches your app next, saying, hey, there's something pending in your cart. Do you want to check out? And the cart was actually a web cart, not a mobile app cart. Moving on to another question, Manikant is asking, can we capture contact details of the visitor leaving the website? Yes, Manikant, that's exactly what we do in one of the most interesting things that we have done in the previous WebEngage. We call this as leave intent targeting. And this is an ability to reach out to users when the user is leaving your website. And we collect all that information, pass it on to you so that you can use it actionably. After this webinar, I'm going to share a lot of collateral with each one of you, and I'll make sure that we pass you more data on leave intent targeting and how to use it. There's another question from Melanie, which how do users become contacts? Melanie, pretty much the same way. We identify users via predefined actions like login or let's say a guest checkout. Going forward, what we are also doing is you have our own tool, which is a web survey product, as you saw. If you're looking at my screen right now, you will see how the web survey product looks like. These are essentially forms, web forms that you can create and target users on your own website. Where it could be, it could be an intercept when the user just lands on your site, more like an opt-in. More like a blocker intercept, or these could be intercepts where during the course of the journey. So if you see, we have a bunch of these gallery items, right? Let's say the one that I'm opening right now is essentially a template, a similar template to collect email for users to subscribe to your, let's say, newsletter. Now we're collecting email here. We already know the user, and we'll be able to tie this email to the user profile. So this is one way of building up your contacts. The other simpler ways is whenever the user logs in or does any activity on your site as a known user, we would convert the anonymous user into a known user and historically merge all the activity data. There's a question from Vishal, how to create segments, customers and non-customers. So Vishal, we actually don't differentiate between the two when it comes to creating segments. And that's the most interesting bit, actually, if you think about it, that we're doing. When you talk about known users, if you had to actually do it for known users, you would use an attribute saying known and say, I know this user. Everything else is pretty much done by behavioral targeting in the segment. And it wouldn't matter much to us in terms of building a differentiation that you want to create a separate set of segments for customers or non-customers. If you so intend to, you can build that different segments as well. This is Sudeep asking me a question: can events be seen for a particular user or a segment of users? Events be seen for a particular user? That's absolutely true, Sudeep. Yes, you can. I did show you user profiles here. And let me quickly go to one of these. So here is a user, and wow, I have a lot of questions. Vijay is bringing in a lot of stuff, and I don't think I'll be able to take all of them. But Steve, quickly, these are what are events? and we track them. So for each user, you will have events that you can track. For a segment of users, we are building segment-based insights. So at an aggregate level, if you had said that I want to build a segment of users who have done add to cart and not bought, what we would do is we would create this segment for you. We'll show you that stats, right? So for example, for each of these segments, you get to see a time series, and within the time series, we'll split this data. Right now you see something like country. We'll split this data based on all the contributing events and show you aggregate statistics. So yes, the answer is you would be able to see it at the segment level as well. How do you add attributes to the segment? Not sure if I understand this right. If it is about labeling and organizing your segments, we'll build those features. But you could add attributes to a user. And Vishal, if I understand your question correctly, there is something that I'll touch upon at the later half of this webinar, which is the stuff that we are now building in terms of how do you engage with people across a segment-based journey. And I guess the doubt or question that you have will get addressed there. I have more questions. Can we integrate WebEngage with Google Analytics? Yes, Rajiv, we can. Please elaborate on how the A/B testing can be used for notifications and surveys. That is Karunesh. Karunesh, I'll have the team reach out to you with detailed documentation on how to be able to do that. It's all there on the web interface. We have login option on mobile but not app. How do you identify the user in such case? That's Rupinder. And Rupinder, yeah, as long as you don't have the option, we'll not be able to identify the user within your app. So, we'll end up creating two different profile IDs. But the day you have the login functionality within your app, you wouldn't have to worry because the day the user signs in, we'll be able to merge all of these data into one single profile, along with all the historical activity. So for now, you basically will have two different profiles. Can we link two anonymous users from two different devices? Parijit is asking me that question, and I'm sure a lot of you had that question in mind. Parijit, as of now, no. But I'll shortly share some of the stuff that we are trying to do in terms of doing this anonymous user profile unification. And it's a very open field. A lot of interesting work happening in that space. On an average, 15 to 20% of success rate, people are able to deliver, and we'll quickly do something in that space depending upon how the demand is shaping up. How do we know the user was on the site more than one time, but just read and go? Count not for time, but we have big time reading. Gabriela is asking me that question. Gab, that's actually a good one, and this is a classic example of using data from two different events. One is the event that is reading, and the second is amount of time spent. If you're tracking both the events, you could build a segment of users who are avid readers and users who don't read much. I hope that answers. Sudeep is asking me a question. Many segmentation variables may not be within WebEngage. Can you connect to client data sources to use more variables? Absolutely, Sudeep. You'd be surprised. We are doing some very, very interesting work here. And we are already building connectors for some of the open data sources. And with our enterprise accounts, I can't name them on this webinar. But with some of our enterprise customers, we are also building custom connectors that syncs with their own BI and different data sources in the backend, and keep our data in sync with theirs as daily or nightly batch jobs. What notification or engagement we can do for non-logged in users? Amit, pretty standard question with a pretty standard answer. I'll share a deck with you, and there's a bunch of data that we've already published on our marketing destinations to give you a very good sense of what all is possible on the anonymous side of engagement, right from engaging users while they are on the site or your app, or when they're trying to leave. Most of it revolves around using their behavior into use. putting their behavior into use. So, for example, if you know that the user has, is visiting you for the let's say 10th time, there's of course a lot of value in reaching out to the user proactively, depending upon your domain, your domain of the kind of customers that you're addressing to. So I'll drop your note separately, and we'll have a bunch of collateral available for you. All right, folks. I know this is already stressed beyond the time limit. So while I had a lot more to show, but the two things that I'll quickly show is. Okay, so this is coming up very, very soon. This is not live on your dashboard. This is our test server, and what I wanted to show you was how our email stuff looks like. So pretty much the same set of things. You will have the ability to create an email. We will support all the major email service providers. You could send emails via your SendGrid account, or your AWS SES account, your Mandrill account. We will pretty much integrate all the all of these major email service providers, and you could define who you want to send this to. This is the body, and the rules part of this is exactly the same as your segments. So again, being able to use the same segment of set of users that you created, or you can custom build one here. And the sending part of it is again either on a fixed date or based on a certain event. I guess I am done with whatever I had to walk you guys through as a part of this webinar. I surely have a lot more, and I'll share a bunch of those on email. The last bit that I wanted you to take a look at is this piece. Do read that blog post I shared with you. Is this piece around what we call as journey. Before I latch on to this one, Divya, if you have any more questions last minute that you want to be addressed, please bring them over. And my friends, this is the last bit of our webinar, wherein I'm talking about the next big thing that's coming from us. We call this as journey, and for us, journey is we'll add it as a feature set within your existing dashboard, and the way we look at it is all the products that you saw within WebEngage or any other automation tool that you use so far, any kind. I won't take names here, but any automation tool, each one of these is basically one-stop engagement, one push engagement. You define you define a campaign, and you define sort of rule for it, and you press a button and the campaign gets active, and people start receiving communications from you. That's how all marketing automation is. What we're trying to do here is introduce, for the more complicated use cases, we're introducing in the concept of what we call as workflows, engagement workflows. So for example, if you, let's say, are a typical B2B enterprise company, just like WebEngage, you would want to reach out to your users in a very phased manner. So for example, when a user signs up for WebEngage, we are a DIY product. People discover us online, sign up for us online. They browse through our website, choose a pricing plan, they sign up for a 14-day trial. We expect them to be super active in the trial and do a few set of things. And at the end of the trial, we expect them to pay. And after that, we expect them to keep paying for the rest of their lives, which unfortunately does not happen. In this entire journey, in this entire course, the user doesn't, do things as we expect the user to do. In that case, what we end up doing is, we build a lot of these engagement programs. So for example, in the course of trial, if you have taken a WebEngage trial, you would know we send out a few emails to you. There's an email that goes out as soon as you start. There is another email that you get after 2 days, then one after 4 days, and another one after 10 days, and so on and so forth. In each of these, the idea basically is to feed you with more content, more actionable content which is relevant to you, and also feed you with your own data of how well you can use WebEngage. So for example, if you've taken a trial for a premium plan and you have not used my leave intent feature, let's say, you receive the email that you receive from us will have a note on that piece saying, why don't you try this yet? Why haven't you tried this yet? Here are two ways in which you could use it. A lot of this engagement, and you'll see this across B2C, you have a typical, cart abandonment journey. A user lands on a product page somehow, either by a search or directly through your SEO or SEM channels, does an add to cart, applies a shipping method, chooses a mode of payment, makes a payment, and comes back, and you say, okay, we are shipping the order. There is a journey, there is a checkout journey, and there are a lot of failures in between. There are guys who will just run away from the cart page without even choosing a plan. There are some who leave behind their email as a part of your checkout flow, but will still not check out. There are some who will try to use a payment method, but fortunately or unfortunately will not be able to pay, and will get some sort of an error on the site. In each of these circumstances, imagine building a workflow and being able to automate the engagement across this different life cycle. So if the guy is, for example, abandoning your cart, you use our web message to reach out to the user. 8 to 10% will engage and the remaining will still go. Now you can put a workflow for those who engage and those who go. Those who go, you'll figure out whether they went anonymously or they went as known user. Those who went as known users, you could send them a cart abandonment email after, let's say, 24 hours, saying these are the items in your cart and why don't you come and check out and offer some sort of a freebie or an incentive to be able to do that. While in isolation, you may be doing all of this, but if you had to think about building a comprehensive user journey and automating engagement across this life cycle, I'm sure most of you are not able to weave it together because there are so many moving pieces here. WebEngage, in its new avatar and trying to be apart from the clutter, is exactly trying to solve that problem. The screen that you're looking at in front of me basically tries to mimic that for a simple use case so that you get a sense. And imagine you being able to build this in a drag drop editor and automate your engagement across the life cycle. I know you are very happy and you really like it, and I'm pretty sure that this is something that is the coolest thing that you've seen in last so many years, and I would appreciate your feedback. We'll circle back for feedback also on the tool, on the stuff that you like, you dislike, you want us to improve upon. We're still in the build phase, and a lot of your inputs will help us do this right. Two last questions that just came to me before we wrap this up. How long does WebEngage store customer data? For contacts, Vishal, that is known users, we store them forever. For anonymous user, we still have to come up with a very strict data policy, but it will be somewhere around 6 months. How to integrate WebEngage with Google Analytics? Please elaborate. Prajit is a follow-on question. Parijit will send you an email. One of us will reach out and will exactly guide you on how to integrate with GA. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This was super exciting, and the kind of questions you guys asked makes me believe that we are on to something good and big. Please send us your feedback, and please tell us how we can engage better with you. We have a very strong customer success team now, and we already work with some of you. Those who would like the engagement to get deeper and us to do a lot of heavy lifting for you, please feel free to reach out to me or anybody in the success team, and we'll be more than happy to take you on board and do better and meaningful things. You'll keep hearing me from me at intervals, and I'll keep sending you the updates. And I'll see you in a webinar all over again very, very soon once we have the journey out. Thank you so much.